Have you ever felt like everything around you was falling apart, without knowing why? Have you ever experienced a pain so deep it felt impossible to go on? What if I told you that this pain might be the beginning of your awakening? In this video, we'll reveal a truth that few have the courage to face. Before the light comes, the darkness. Carl Jung once said that the path to consciousness is painful, and few are truly ready for it. We'll talk about the journey of individuation, the confrontation with our shadow, the conflict between ego and soul, and why life so often pushes us into chaos before offering us clarity. What lies behind the anguish you feel? Discover what can be born from your own abyss. But be careful. Not everyone is ready to hear what comes next. There are moments in life when everything seems to lose its meaning. Things that once fulfilled us no longer awaken anything. There's a strange, silent unease. A weight we feel but can't quite explain. It's as if something inside us is trying to change, but the outside world still demands that we remain who we've always been. This inner conflict marks the beginning of true growth, and it isn't beautiful. It's uncomfortable, confusing, and often painful. At this point, many people believe they're regressing, failing, or going insane. But what's really happening is that the old self is being forced to step aside. And what hurts isn't who we are. It's everything we still cling to, often unconsciously. The pain comes from trying to keep fitting into shapes that no longer match our expanding awareness. Contrary to what many think, personal and spiritual growth doesn't begin with clarity or peace. It usually starts with collapse, with exhaustion, with a breakdown. That's because comfort, though it feels good, is often the place where we hide from ourselves. It keeps us trapped in patterns, relationships, and lifestyles that numb us. And emotional numbness is deceptive. It helps us survive, but prevents us from truly living. Transformation only begins when something forces us out of autopilot. And that something is usually suffering. An emotional crisis, an unexpected loss, a nameless anguish. It's in these moments that the ground falls away and we are thrown inward. Not because we choose to, but because there's no other way. And there, the breaking begins, the start of a rebirth. Pain is uncomfortable, yes, but it's also revealing. It shows what's out of place. It exposes the emptiness, the internal lies, the walls we built out of fear. When we stop running and start listening to that pain, we realize it's not there to punish us. It's there to transform us. Pain is the soul's movement trying to break through the layers of falsehood we've built throughout life. And it only screams when we ignore its whispers. That's why it's no exaggeration to say that pain is often a portal. To cross it takes courage, yes, but more than that, it takes honesty. Because there's no more room for pretending. We have to face what's real, what's wounded, what needs to be undone. And the process is so deep, there's no way to go through it and come out the same person. Perhaps the hardest part of awakening is realizing that much of what we believed about ourselves was a lie. The way we saw ourselves, the roles we played in the world, the relationships we endured out of fear of loneliness, all of that begins to unravel. Not because someone told us it was wrong, but because something inside can no longer bear the act. That's when the illusions fall away. And when they do, a void appears. An inner silence that, at first, feels frightening. But that silence prepares the ground for something new. We just don't know what it is yet. And that uncertainty, that not knowing, is what makes the pain so intense. Because it doesn't come only with suffering. It comes with the symbolic death of who we thought we were. What comes next is the most intimate journey of all, the confrontation with everything we've hidden from ourselves. And that's when we begin to understand what Jung called the shadow. The journey of individuation, a central concept in Carl Jung's work, is the process through which we become fully ourselves, far from the masks and roles imposed by the world and by our own minds. This path begins with an inevitable encounter, that of the shadow, all the parts of us we repress, deny, or prefer not to see. It's not only about flaws or mistakes, but about everything that doesn't fit the image we try to project. The shadow holds both fear and hidden potential. Recognizing it is an act of courage, because it requires abandoning the illusion of perfection and embracing the complexity of being. Confronting the shadow isn't a one-time act. It's the center of a deep crisis that breaks down old certainties. Often, the individual feels torn between who they truly are and what the world expects them to be. This tension is fundamental for growth because without the collapse of outdated self-concepts, there's no room for transformation. The individuation process demands stepping away from external influences that shape a superficial identity, making space for authenticity, an authenticity that emerges from the integration of conscious and unconscious. To individuate, then, means to move toward integration, not to eliminate the shadow, but to embrace it, understand it, and make it a part of conscious life. This integration expands one's perception of the world and of oneself, deepening the sense of inner freedom. It's not about reaching a state of perfection, but about accepting the paradox within us, light and shadow, strength and fragility, order and chaos. This internal movement is both a process of self-knowledge and reconciliation, transforming how we relate to ourselves and to the world around us. The outcome of this journey isn't a fixed point, but a continuous awakening. The individuated person lives in constant motion, learning to recognize the inner signals that call for change, reflection, or deeper understanding. Jung believed that this quest is the deepest mission of human existence, to become what we truly are, despite the pain and conflict that may come with it. It's a solitary and intense path, but one that offers a unique reward, the awareness of oneself as a complex, whole, and ever-transforming being. Yet this profound transformation doesn't happen without the ego being challenged. The conflict between ego and the unconscious is inevitable, and it is precisely this clash that reveals the true cost of awakening. Chaos arises when the certainties that once held our existence together begin to fall apart. It is a moment of discomfort and disorientation, in which everything that once felt solid reveals itself to be unstable. Internally, we experience this collapse as a deep crisis, one that challenges our usual ways of thinking, feeling, and acting. But this disorganization isn't just a negative state. It's the critical turning point where old internal structures are questioned, and the foundations for something new begin to emerge. Chaos, then, is not the end, but the primal space where transformation can take root. Although chaos is frightening, it is necessary for growth. In the discomfort of the unknown, we are forced to let go of old certainties and surrender the illusion of control we try to exert over life. That surrender opens up space for new possibilities that were once buried beneath layers of habit and convention. The unknown, though threatening, is also fertile ground for authenticity and creativity, because it demands that we reinvent ourselves and break away from outdated patterns. In the midst of chaos, there is an implicit invitation to reconnect with ourselves beyond masks and conditioning. It's a call to recognize what truly matters, what remains when all distractions and external securities are stripped away. This process requires courage to face our own vulnerability and to allow even the most difficult emotions to be fully felt. In vulnerability, paradoxically, lies a renewing strength capable of restoring our connection with the deepest core of our being. Thus, chaos is not an obstacle. It is a portal, the threshold where pain and confusion transform into clarity and renewal. Moving through this space demands patience and acceptance, as there are no shortcuts or guarantees. Navigating chaos is an active process of surrender and resistance, a delicate dance between the urge to control and the deeper wisdom that knows when it's time to let go. It is within that balance that awakening becomes possible. However, this awakening does not occur solely on an individual level. It echoes in our relationship with the world, revealing another dimension of transformation, the encounter between the self and the other. Inner transformation does not occur in isolation. It finds a mirror in the relationships we cultivate. The other is more than just someone we live alongside. They are an extension of our inner world, a presence that can reveal parts of ourselves we have yet to know. In this interaction, we are challenged to confront aspects we try to hide and to expand our understanding of what it means to be human. Relationship becomes, then, a space of learning, where personal growth and reconciliation with our own shadow take on new dimensions. For the meeting between self and other to be genuine, there must be a willingness to be vulnerable. It means letting go of defenses and the masks we wear for protection, even if it exposes our weaknesses. And yet, it is this exposure, despite the risk, that allows for authentic recognition and deep connection. Through it, the individual discovers that the other is not a threat, but a companion in the process of individuation and transformation, capable of reflecting and embracing the fragmented parts of the self. This encounter makes possible a reconciliation that goes beyond the isolated self. It expands consciousness to include the other as an inseparable part of the human experience. It's a movement that dissolves internal and external boundaries and opens the way to a more integrated and expansive perception of life. Through relationship, we come to understand that transformation is not only personal, but also relational and collective, and that true awakening involves the acceptance of our interdependence. The meeting between self and other is an essential step toward both inner and outer unity. It places us before the challenge of balancing autonomy and connection, individuality and belonging. This balance is not simple, as it involves tensions and paradoxes that require constant awareness and realignment. Still, it is in this movement that the true depth of individuation is revealed, not as isolation, but as complete integration, where the self recognizes the other as a fundamental part of its own being. But this path of integration and unity still faces one final profound challenge: the acceptance of the mystery and the unknown that permeate all existence. The pursuit of understanding, so highly valued by reason, meets a natural limit when it encounters the mystery of existence. Not everything can be explained, controlled, or defined. Recognizing this, though uncomfortable for a mind trained to seek clarity, is essential to inner maturity. Accepting that there are aspects of life that escape rational grasp does not mean giving up on knowledge, but rather expanding the horizon of experience beyond what is visible and tangible. Mystery is not emptiness or threat. It is the fertile ground where life reveals itself in its full complexity and depth. It is within this uncertain terrain that the greatest opportunities for growth and renewal emerge. To accept mystery is to embrace existence as an open, dynamic process, where control is limited and surprise is constant. This openness allows consciousness to move more freely, unburdened by the rigidity of absolute certainties. To acknowledge mystery is also an act of humility before the infinite, both within and around us. It means recognizing that, despite all our abilities, we are part of something greater, a vast, interconnected web that transcends ego and reason. This humility does not reduce the self, but expands it, placing it in contact with a wisdom that draws not only from logic, but from intuition and feeling. In the acceptance of mystery, silence becomes a powerful ally. It is in the quiet space between questions and answers that true presence can emerge. This silence is not empty. It is full, inhabited by a consciousness that welcomes the unknown without fear. Within it lies the possibility of deep encounter, with oneself, with the other, and with life in all its mystery and wholeness. And it is precisely this silent encounter that opens the path to the final awakening, the realization that the journey never ends, but constantly reinvents itself. Awakening is not an isolated event or a final achievement. It manifests as a continuous flow, a constant movement between consciousness and the unconscious, between pain and relief, between doubt and certainty. Each stage of the journey of individuation and transformation reveals new horizons and challenges, showing that inner growth is an endless process, one that accompanies us throughout life. Part of this continuous awakening lies in the acceptance of impermanence. Nothing remains fixed, and every change brings with it the opportunity for renewal. This fluidity demands mental and emotional flexibility, as well as a willingness to adapt and evolve, even when it requires letting go of significant parts of the self. Understanding that the self is always in transformation is both liberating and challenging. As awakening progresses, consciousness expands, becoming deeper and broader. This expansion does not merely involve gaining more knowledge, but developing a more refined perception of reality, one that includes paradoxes, uncertainties, and the invisible connections between all aspects of existence. The awakened individual does not seek to eliminate complexity, but to embrace it, finding meaning even within chaos. Ultimately, continuous awakening demands a commitment to personal evolution, to inner honesty, and to the courage needed to face whatever arises. It is not an easy or linear path, but it is the only one that leads to an authentic and meaningful life. That commitment is the foundation that ensures awakening is not just a fleeting moment, but a sustained way of being in the world. And so, the pain that once seemed unbearable before awakening reveals its true purpose, to prepare the ground for a more conscious, free, and truthful existence.